Look, here's a little something I want to explain about the law of assumption and how this whole manifesting thing actually works. Most of you seem to think that there is the idea of such a thing as a subconscious mind that's separate from the unconscious and the conscious mind. Well, it's actually not. The subconscious mind doesn't actually tangibly exist in and of itself, right? The subconscious mind is actually an interferometric interaction of the unconscious and the conscious mind. And this interaction generates what is known as the subconscious mind. This interaction process is how all phenomena unfold in reality without any exceptions. Everything follows this order. And the same thing happens with your thoughts. Thoughts can be integrated within each other, and they can interact with each other and form new thoughts. They follow pathways. They progress along pathways and interact with other pathways that they interact with. Hence you have this big web of interconnected thought processes all playing off one another. Right? That is the subconscious mind. But the thing is that none of that tangibly exists in and of itself. It's a creation of what the conscious mind is aware of in the unconscious mind, right? The unconscious is like the big storage mechanism, and the conscious mind is like the harnessing of what is stored. It's like grabbing out and pulling out and making aware of what's been stored in the unconscious mind. So when you have a thought, you're retrieving that from unconscious mind and you're projecting it through the lens of the conscious mind, and that projection is a representation of interferometry through the subconscious mind. Hence you create phenomena. Hence you manifest reality. That's basically how it works, really. There is none of this probability functioning nonsense that far too many talk about. That's never been demonstrated. You know the whole observer effect can be explained with what I just said. Interferometry, longitudinal interferometry specifically, a branch of physics that's been lost to time for a long while now, over a century. Almost, around the century at this point. And the problem is that far too many people don't really spend time trying to understand the mechanics as to how and why this stuff works the way it does. They listen to someone that makes them feel good, right? And that's great. That's what we all need. We do need that. But the thing is that when we're talking about mechanics, who is correct, who is incorrect? Well, reality synthesis is correct, which is the model that I spent, almost 8 years developing now. And I thoroughly refute the standard model of law of assumption as a probabilistic function. There is divine order, divine structure to reality. There is one pattern that unfolds proportionally. By proportionally, I'm talking about like ratios between points, right? It's the space between points that contains information. For example, water. 108, 36, 36 degree on the dipole bonds between hydrogen and oxygen is a fractal field geometry which can be cut and infinitely sliced up to have the same pattern. It's a triangle, a Pythagorean triangle of all shapes actually, and a Pythagorean triangle can fit inside another Pythagorean triangle infinitely. The same thing goes with the pattern of what you call God or the imagination. There is one pattern. It's like a Mandelbrot set, and each part of that pattern contains its own tangible aspect of itself that you experience as your reality. You see? The subconscious mind is the interaction of what is potential and what is realized through the unconscious and the conscious mind. So when we're doing these techniques, all we're really doing is pulling out potential that exists within the Mandelbrot set that has potential for you to experience what it is that you wish to tangibly realize, and play that out through the subconscious mind, right? The subconscious mind has no power in and of itself. I'm sorry, Joseph Murphy. The power of your subconscious mind, it does not work. It doesn't work that way. The subconscious mind is a creation. It is a result. It is a product of interactions that are more primitive, unfolding. That's how it all works, guys. That's the metaphysics of reality. It's patterns, right? Patterns playing off of each other, generating new phenomena as a result of these interactions. And thus you create this big web, this big pathway where you have branching pathways going off of each other. If you've looked at my graphic, the reality synthesis manifestation hierarchy graphic, you'll see I see reality as a house of cards, right? There's a triangle, and then a triangle within a triangle, and a triangle within a triangle within a triangle within a triangle, yada yada yada. And the base foundation part of that triangle, it underlies and supports everything else above it. That is God. That is the imagination, right? So when you change your sense of self, which is fundamental to reality, that is the primary driving force, the contextual sense of who and what you are, that is what creates the very basis, the foundation from which everything else is built on top of. When your foundation is shaky, and it's not stable, and it's not proportional, not aligned to what it is that you wish to experience, there cannot be a pathway, a path of least resistance that is generated for you to walk towards what it is that you wish to experience. That is how the bridge of incidence unfolds. It is you following the pathway of proportional fractal field geometry. That is how it works. I can map every single one of these things with my model, and I can explain it graphically. I can explain the mathematics of it. I can show you tangible examples in reality. My model is irrefutably correct. That is what reality synthesis was created for. I started working on this a very, very long time ago, and it took me many years of research to get enough points, get enough data to put it together, to finally formulate the big picture that is now, what you understand of as reality synthesis. And I don't mean to dismiss the standard model, because it's helped so many people. It really has. It got me where I am. But it's not all there is. There is more to it. There is far more to it than that. There is no probability functions. Okay, it doesn't matter how many people say there is not. In my reality, I decide the facts of life. That's how it works. You decide the facts of life. You decide what is and what is not true. Because, again, your sense of self determines the very foundation from which everything else builds upon and is integrated within. The house of cards is built upon the foundation of your sense of self. If that foundation is unshaky, then everything else falls and crumbles and tumbles down, and suffering occurs. False identification is suffering. That is what I learned from reading all the ancient spiritual texts. False identification is suffering, tangibly and metaphysically. And false identification is the phenomena of wanting something but not being it. It's like the idea that Neville said, when you think of it, not from it. When you think of something, you're not identifying as the person who has it. When you think from it, when you think as the person who has it and that the desire wants you, then it's done. That's what he means by it's done. It's the interferometric interaction that's playing out that aligns those field geometries, provides a pathway, and you move along the so-called bridge of incidence, which is the pathway that is linking the sense of self that you wish to experience with the sense of the desire. And you simply move from point A to point B. That's how the bridge of incidence unfolds, and that's how manifestation works. You're simply drifting through the sea of the ether. That's all it is. That's literally all this is. So when we minimize it down to the very minimum kind of understanding of how this works, the very basics, the very foundational ideas, your sense of self, right? The idea, the context, the sense of who you are, and how that relates to the world around you as well. Not just who you are purely in and of yourself, but how that also relates to the world around you. That is the context. The concept and the context interact to formulate what it is that you experience. Again, in reality, everything is formed by interacting pieces, playing off of each other. Everything follows this progression, everything without exception. And I'll continue to say that because it's very important to understand. We have two aspects that we must align in order to bring about the change. That is how it works. When you do the correct modulations within your field geometry by assuming who and what you are and what you're capable of correctly according to what it is that you wish to desire, then it's impossible for you to fail. It's literally impossible, because you've done everything that needs to be done. You've generated that proportional pathway, and it's unfolding as you speak. In fact, it's difficult not to continue on that pathway because you build momentum, and when you build momentum, things manifest very, very quickly. I've had that happen numerous times. I've manifested specific people into my life. I don't even know how many times on the same day, within hours, or the next day. And it doesn't matter what your frame of mind is. It doesn't matter what your emotions are. You can do it angry, you can do it sad, you can do it whatever emotions you want. It doesn't matter. The emotions are simply representing where you are in the current moment. That's the conscious mind, right? But the unconscious mind is really what holds the power, not the conscious mind. The conscious mind simply shifts in and out of various states that the unconscious mind has, right? But you never stay in one state for very long, so you're constantly moving in and out. That's why when you're sad and you cry, you eventually get over it. It doesn't last forever. You just have your moment, and it passes by. You don't identify with that. It just passes by like wind. That's all it is. That's really the basis of how this all works, guys. It's not hard to understand. That's the basis of reality synthesis. There is two parts that you need to understand to manifest anything. Who are you? Okay, who are you? What is your character? How do you describe yourself? Who are you? What is the sense of who you are? And here's another important point. How do you describe yourself? How do you describe yourself without actually thinking about yourself? Feel. When Neville Goddard said feeling is the secret, he wasn't talking about emotions. He was talking about an intuitive sense. He was talking about a sort of hunch about yourself. This idea, even if you don't have any proof in the tangible world, the senses you can deny, right? Even without visual representation or auditory representation within your physical senses, you still assume yourself to be who you are, especially when you're first starting out and you got like no momentum behind you, right? And remember, it doesn't matter how good or bad you feel emotionally. What matters is the underlying context that precedes these feelings, because the emotions are the response. You cannot program your mind with emotions. It doesn't work like that. Emotions are an output response to what is being put in. Okay, they are part of the process. When information is processed through your pathways, the result of that is emotional output, not input. You cannot program yourself with input emotions. You can only program yourself with input thought processes through the imagination by using your five senses or your contextual sense. This is what I mean by think without thinking and feel without feeling. When you can learn to think and feel without thinking and feeling, then you learn to tap into the very basis of the sense of self and shift everything above it by default. Remember how I said that it's like a house of cards. If you shift what's underneath, everything else above must respond with it. Because it's integrated. It's integrated and embedded within itself. Okay, that's how it works. That's why shifting your sense of self manifests things that, in other areas of your life that you didn't think about. Like here's a massive hole in the standard theory. When you shift your sense of self, all sorts of things that you weren't thinking about at that time come in. And oftentimes when you stop thinking about things and you go off in your life and you focus on developing yourself, the normie way, all sorts of magic kind of, experiences with people coming in left, right, and center, and money coming to you, or whatever it is that you were intending to do a while ago that you forgot about, it just comes to you all of a sudden as soon as you start working on yourself. Why is that? Because they're all integrated. They're all integrated together. It's all one big pathway that's playing off. It's not these individual thought processes that exist in bubbles on their own. No. It's all connected, right? It's all a big progression. It's all a big set of pathways. It's a house of cards. And when you learn to shift the basis of that house of cards, you succeed in everything. You succeed in literally everything. Because it's impossible not to, because that's the basis of how everything is built. I hope I've made my point clear. That's how reality synthesis works. The basis of it, at least. There's far more detail to this. We can go into the physics of it. We can go into the metaphysics. We can read the texts. We can go into all the details. And that's coming in future videos. But for now, I just wanted to put this one out here and give a monologue on how things work. So I hope you enjoyed that. I strongly recommend you to subscribe, because we're going to be going into significantly more detail. We're going to be thoroughly refuting the standard model, and we're going to be developing what is the correct model of how and why law of assumption, law of attraction, whatever you want to call it, works. Manifesting works. The how and the why, to me, is the most important part. Because when we can establish a foundation based on correct theory, not just what we assume to be correct, but based on everything that we can see around us, the very basis of how the law actually works, the structure of reality. When we can understand that, and we can see that, and we can represent it and recreate it within ourselves, fractally, proportionally, then we have successfully manifested our desires. That's all it is. That's why you are a simulacrum of God. You are made in God's image. God is the imagination, the pattern that unfolds. The human being is a literal, perfect representation of the fractal field geometry that is the prime medium, that is God, that is imagination, that is reality itself. That's all there is. That's all there ever will be. So I hope you guys like, I hope you guys subscribe, and I hope you guys share, because this needs to get out, and we need to make people aware that there is another model out there, and that this model is going to come in hard and fast, and it will take over the world eventually. That is my plan. So we'll see how it plays out. Anyway, thank you for listening.